Today we're diving into a story that has shocked millions across the world. Russia has been thrown into chaos after a devastating strike reportedly hit one of its major power facilities, and the images, the reactions, and the panic spreading across social media have turned the entire incident into a global moment of disbelief. People are calling it one of the most intense escalations seen in recent years, and the consequences are already rippling far beyond the borders of the city that was hit. The situation unfolded in seconds, but the impact will likely echo for years. Flames rose high above the city skyline. Sirens filled the air. Videos began flooding the internet within minutes, and what people saw was enough to make anyone stop and stare. A massive explosion, followed by cascading fires tearing through a key part of Russia's electrical infrastructure. As the smoke thickened, neighborhoods nearby reportedly plunged into sudden darkness. Families rushed out onto balconies. Cars came to a halt at intersections. People grabbed their phones, unsure whether this was the beginning of a larger attack or an isolated moment of destruction. The panic in the streets became impossible to ignore. You can see it in the shaky phones, the hurried whispers, the frantic messages being sent across Russian social media. People wanted answers. But answers weren't coming fast enough, and that only made the fear grow. What made the whole situation even more alarming was the claim circulating online that the attack was carried out using what many were calling Flamingo missiles. These weren't weapons most people had heard of before, and that mystery only fueled speculation. Were these new weapons? A new strategy? A warning? Or something even more dangerous? In moments like these, people don't wait for official statements. They react. They run. They search for safety. And in the affected city, that reaction was almost instant. Thousands rushed to stores to grab essentials. Gas stations filled up within an hour. Supermarkets saw long lines stretching out into the parking lots. Fear spreads faster than any explosion, and this incident showed exactly how quickly it can take over an entire population. Parents grabbed their children. Elderly people struggled through crowds. There was shouting, confusion, traffic jams, and a sense of urgency that hasn't been felt in Russia for years. For many, it felt like the beginning of something terrible, something unstoppable, something that could change everything. In the hours that followed, rumors began flooding in. Some said there were more missiles incoming. Others claimed more power stations could be targeted. Some even believed the entire energy grid was under attack. And when fear mixes with uncertainty, you get a perfect storm of panic, speculation, and desperation. As firefighters battled towering flames, another crisis began unfolding. The electrical grid started collapsing. The power plant that was hit wasn't just a local facility. It powered entire districts. And now those districts were going dark one by one. Hospitals switched to backup generators. Transportation systems faltered. Communication networks became unstable. Imagine being in a city where the lights suddenly vanish, where the background hum of electricity disappears, where elevators stop, where heaters turn cold, where people start lighting candles like it's a bygone century. That's exactly what many residents experienced as the blackout spread. Inside high-rise apartments, people pressed their faces to the glass, trying to figure out what was happening below. Streets that were glowing, bright, just moments earlier became shadows, outlined only by the distant fires still burning at the power station. Down on the ground, emergency workers were scrambling, trying to control the flames while simultaneously dealing with a population in panic. They were exhausted, overwhelmed, and battling a situation that was spiraling faster than anyone expected. And then came the sound, a low distant boom echoing across the city, not an explosion, but the collapse of a damaged structure at the power facility. It set off another wave of fear, and people began rushing away from the area, unsure if the disaster was growing or something even worse was about to happen. Governments typically move slowly, but in moments like this, every second counts. Russian officials released statements, but the messages were vague, controlled, and carefully worded. They spoke of damage, investigation, and containment, but avoided mentioning who might be responsible, or whether more danger was looming. People didn't trust it. Not when the night sky was glowing orange. Not when emergency vehicles were rushing in from surrounding regions. Not when roads in and out of the city were suddenly congested with thousands of cars trying to leave all at once. Social media became the lifeline for millions. Streams, Posts, live videos, people documenting everything around them, unsure if it would be their last message before another strike hit. The digital world became a mirror of chaos, reflecting fear, anger, confusion, and raw emotion. In moments like this, you see the reality of modern conflict, not just the explosions, not just the destruction, but the psychological warfare, the panic, the uncertainty, and the paralysis that spreads through entire populations. But here's the chilling part. A lot of experts online began suggesting that this attack wasn't meant to destroy just a power plant. It was meant to send a message that hit right at the heart of Russia's infrastructure, a reminder that even heavily fortified cities are vulnerable, that even the mightiest nations can be shaken. Whether this message came from an enemy, a hidden group, or a covert operation is still unclear, but one thing is certain: it reached millions. And for Russia, that message couldn't have come at a worse time. Rising tensions, uncertain alliances, economic strain, and now an attack that exposes a weakness many thought didn't exist. It's the kind of moment that reshapes strategies, ignites retaliation, and escalates conflicts. Night turned into a long, sleepless vigil for the people in the affected city. Many gathered in hallways, stairwells, and basements. Some prayed quietly. Others remained glued to their phones. Children cried. Adults whispered. There was a silence thick with fear, the kind that only appears when a population senses that something larger is unfolding around them. As dawn approached, the fires were finally brought under control. The smoke began to thin. The emergency teams made progress, but the damage was done. The city looked like a ghost of itself, dark, shaken, and uncertain about what would come next. Families stepped out into streets covered in ash. The smell of burned metal lingered in the air. Blackened structures stood like reminders of how quickly everything can change. The power plant was still smoking, its twisted metal framework towering like a monument to chaos. People wanted answers. They wanted reassurance. But what they got instead was more confusion. Officials made statements that contradicted earlier reports. Analysts offered different explanations. News outlets framed the story in their own political narratives. And the truth became blurry, buried under layers of fear and strategy. But one detail remained constant through every version of the story. This was not a small event. This was not something to be brushed off. This was a moment that would have consequences, military, political, and emotional. The world is watching. The people of Russia are watching. And everyone knows that events like this don't fade quietly. They spark reactions, they trigger counteractions, and they create ripple effects that don't stop at borders. As power crews work through the morning, Russia faced one of the most vulnerable moments in recent memory. Not just because of the physical damage, but because of the psychological shockwave. When a nation sees flames rising from its own energy infrastructure, it feels exposed in a way that is hard to describe. And that exposure can lead to decisions made out of fear, out of anger, out of desperation, the kind of decisions that escalate conflicts instead of resolving them. This moment will be analyzed for years. What happened, how it happened, who was behind it, and what it means for the future of a region already simmering with tension. But beyond the politics and strategies, there's a deeper human story. The families who huddled through the night, the workers who risked their lives fighting fires, the children who woke up to a city without power, the people who saw their home turn into something unrecognizable. Those voices matter. Those experiences matter. And they remind us that behind every headline, every explosion, every strategic move, there are real people trying to survive moments that no one should ever have to face. The road ahead is uncertain. The questions are many, and the world waits to see how Russia responds, how the situation evolves, and whether this incident becomes a turning point or merely the beginning of something much larger. But one thing is clear: the night Russia turned into chaos, the world witnessed a moment that will not be forgotten. A moment that stripped away any illusion of safety, a moment that showed how fragile stability truly is. And as the dust settles, as investigators dig through the wreckage, as citizens try to restore a sense of normalcy, the fear remains, the memory remains, and the tension lingers like smoke refusing to disperse. Because events like this don't end when the flames are put out. They leave marks that last much, much longer. Thank you for watching, and stay safe wherever you are. The world is changing fast, and moments like this remind us how important it is to stay awake, stay aware, and stay prepared. Until next time, take care and keep your eyes open, because the story isn't over yet.